Hello gamers, Powered Heal here, and today we finally have the last installment of the gearing guides, the Pre-Bis guides for the Druid, Shaman, and Paladin. And I decided to basically put these into one video because basically there's a lot of similarities, and I'm going to go over each one specifically, but there's not going to be a ton to say. I feel like overall it's mostly going to be about getting you guys the information, letting you know kind of like what alternatives there are and stuff like that. So we'll kind of go through each one briefly, and we'll kind of explain, you know, maybe other items you can get in general, like alternate greens and stuff like that, and kind of like the general concept that we're trying to do for each one. And I just want to really get this out there, you know, before tomorrow, so that you guys are able to have something to kind of guide you along, in case, especially if any you like level kind of fast and you're trying to get into BFD right away, right? So you have the resources there. I typically, you know, I would normally probably do these all as like one video, or sorry, all as their individual videos, but I don't really think it's going to cause harm here. So we'll start with the Druid. And the Druid, it's kind of going to be very similar to the Priest. If you watch the Priest video, you know, you'll kind of already get the vibe of where I'm going. And initially, you know, I was thinking that it's kind of going to depend, or it's not really going to depend so much on a lot of things, right? Because this was kind of my thought for like the build that you're pretty much going to go, like something like this potentially. But depending on if that other Druid build I was talking about in the Druid class guide, where Omen of Clarity actually works with not just melee attacks, but with spells and stuff like that. So if that actually becomes the case, and you do want to go for that build, then you're losing Reflection here, which is basically your 15% mana regeneration to continue while casting, right? So what that means is if you don't go out of the 5-second rule, you basically have no in-combat. Why is it not? Hold on a second. Let me just fix this. There we go. Yeah, you have no in-combat regeneration, right? If you don't dip out and wait 5 seconds. So that means that the value of spirits on gear is going to be, you know, dropped a little bit. Basically the same thing I was talking about in the Priest video. Now, the caveat to that, or the kind of like drawback, is that like, you know, you're still getting the full benefit of the spirit when you're kind of drinking out of combat. And even if you're drinking in combat, you're getting a little bit of the benefit, right? Because you're technically outside the 5-second rule at that point. And this is a class where, because it has the hots and kind of like the really solid, bigger, chunkier heal, the 2.5 second cast, that you can definitely probably let, you know, your target or your tank sit a little bit before actually casting on them. So that means you may actually be able to take advantage of that like 5-second thing more than you know, more than you otherwise could, right? So it is like an interesting thing as to like whether you actually want the spirit or not. I think it's going to largely depend on kind of like the play style that you see yourself able to use once you get into the raid or get into 5-mans, right? Like if it's going to be, you have to be spamming casting, then, and you don't have this, spirit's not going to be as useful. But if you see lots of opportunities that you can kind of abuse the 5-second rule and stuff like that, then it's not really going to matter as much if you don't have Reflection. You're still going to want some spirit. And I think just in general, it's a good idea to try and get spirit where you can, even if it's not like, you know, the maximum available stat. So I'll give you an example on that in a second. So you go with the Shadow Goggles, which is pretty much the same for every class. A nice mix of intellect and spirit. And then this is like one of those things where this has an intellect version, I believe. Where is it? Maybe it doesn't. I think it does, though. It basically has a version like this with a +6 int. And I think it's just better to get the spirit in almost all cases, because that's like a close one. And then take this because it's spirit intellect, right? Pretty easy there. You can also, there's some good other options here. A lot of these can be replaced with like random greens. Keep in mind, this is another thing that you can get +6 intellect on, but I prefer the int spirit. This is just most likely going to be bis in all cases, but could be replaced by like a a decent green item that's probably going to be like 7/7 or 8/8. This is an interesting item, so you could go for 4/4 here, I think, on the bracers, but I prefer having the extra 5 intellect. But I mean, these are going to probably be, I think these are a world drop. Yeah, so they might be expensive anyway, so you might just be better off going for like of the owl stuff here if you can't find something like that. This staff is going to be revered, so it's maybe a little bit annoying to get. But the reason why I like going staff generally is because you can put the 3 int on it. And I really like the MP5 there. It's just going to be better than a lot of the spirit that you're going to get. I would say something like this works, Staff of Westfall. This is another great staff. Doesn't have the spirit on it, but... oh, sorry, this is the one with the spirit on it. Yeah, I was comparing it to mine. But yeah, so there's some good, some decent weapons in here. But I think that the other one's the best. This staff is always like solid, just has no spirit and no regen, right? But it's still a staff and it still has intellect, so you can get the +3 on it. So all stuff like that is pretty decent for the weapon slot. Here I like to go True Faith just because like I think the max you're gonna get in this slot is like +6 int anyway. So you're sacking like I'll sack 3 int for like 15 healing, in some cases at least. And then, but you could go for like a 6/6 or a 4/4 here. It wouldn't be terrible if you want a bit more spirit. I think this is just going to be Bis world drop. It's even, well, yeah, these are both very similar items, right? So either one would be pretty much fine. And then stuff like this is good. The Dreamer's Belt is what I would kind of go next from the vendors. Some of that stuff might be expensive early, but it should come down in price because eventually there's just going to be so many layers, and some of this stuff isn't even limited stock. So these are going to be pretty good overall just because like the combination of good stats, but you can just replace them with something like that as well. Like either of these kind of work. Very similar items, right? These are pretty much unequivocally probably going to be your best boots until the actual raid boots, and it's not really that close. This is a little light on the int, but heavy on the spirit, and it's got like a point of stam, so I took it, but there's honestly a lot of things that work here. Like this works, although I think this is that's from Million Caverns, yeah. Yeah, like, why is this not sure? Okay. Yeah, even something like that works, or this. Like, there's a lot of, like, you're basically just looking for int and spirit, or just int at the baseline. Like, in this, we just go int, right? And we sack some stam. And then, obviously, like, engineering is just completely goated for the recombobs. Plus the goggles. So yeah, that's what I'd say about Druid is like, the more you lean into this, the more you get spirit, the more that you think like you're going to be having to just cast. And if you think you have time to stand outside the 5-second rule, then even if you can't get this, spirit's just going to be more valuable. I think the other build would be something like, and you can do this build even differently too. You can do like that. This, and then you're at 24 points, and you just probably put a point in here, or maybe put 1 point in there. The reason why you're taking this, by the way, in in a bunch of the builds is because of this rune right here, where it's basically just going to allow you to, while there's downtime, just be casting Wrath for free and giving you a chance to get an instant healing touch, which is really nice. Depending on how like hectic the fights are, you may not be able to use this as much. But I suspect that you're going to be able to use it enough where it's almost always going to be better than Living Seed, because Living Seed just, you have like abysmal crit early, and you don't really have any way to augment or help that. So I struggle to think that Living Seed will actually be really good, right? So that's kind of like my thoughts on the Druid Bis. Again, very similar to the Priest Bis, just like certain slots use some leather, but a lot of it is interchangeable, right? So that's that. And then let's move on to the Shaman. So the Shaman, like, initially I was like there's a little bit of genuine dilemma, because if you go in here, right, and you turn on random suffixes, you'll see everything has like plus healing right now. Normally, I'm not like super into getting the green plus healing items with no other stats or anything like that. However, especially because since we're in phase 1 and a bunch of the spells we're going to be using are potentially below level 20, that means that, they don't really benefit from the spell coefficient very well. So it's another reason to kind of like stay away from plus healing. But in this particular case, I was thinking, well, the Shaman's, chain heal is so strong. Like, well, it scales so well. It has such a great spell coefficient because it's multi-target, right? And if you did have it, that was going to be a thing that you would probably be using a lot. But you actually don't get chain heal, when I looked into it a little bit closer, I had forgot about that. It's like level 40. So, basically, this becomes, with that in mind, you're kind of like tank healing probably, and you're looking to basically be like a Paladin. So, this is like a remnant of the other thing. But with something like this, the spirit on Shaman is like really bad, right? So we tend to trend more towards int. I think that's why I actually took the spell power here, because there is nothing that gives straight intellect. Like, all this stuff gives other stuff, and then it's like white items and stuff, right? And the spell damage can be sort of useful depending on like what rune you take, right? If you take, what's the other rune here? I think it's this. So yeah, it could help with that potentially. So that's why I just took these here. But then this I took int, right? This is the biggest int thing here. More int. You could go int stamina on some of these greens if you want to be a bit tankier, but I think it's pretty much fine how it is. This I just went int stam because the spirit is just not very good. I mean, you could use the same robes though. Like if this dropped, it's not bad at all, right? You're only losing like 3 int and you're gaining 10 spirit. I mean, the spirit does help if you're out of combat, like drinking and stuff like that. It's just it helps even if you're in the 5-second rule or out of it, but it's just not as good on Shaman. So something to keep in mind. On this is something I would definitely go for the the bracers for. For some reason, I think my thing got reset here, but yeah, I would probably go for something like this or this. This or this, yeah. This or this, sorry. And then I'd enchant it with the +3 int. So this is actually kind of interesting. This is pretty solid. I mean, the spirit, again, not that great, but it's pretty decent when compared to the other stuff, right? So any of those kind of work for Shaman. Again, Truth Faith Gloves, just because we're mainly focused on the int here, so we're not going to get a good split regardless. Like, it'd probably be 4-4 would be our split, so you might as well be 3 and a little bit of plus healing, right? This, again, just int is what we're mainly going for. Here, looking for the int again. In some of these things, you may be able to get like a green that's like +10 int or something. If you see that, just take it. But I actually do like having like the stamina and stuff. This +6, I think it's leather, so the priest couldn't use this, but it's pretty good. Obviously +7 int there, +2 agility, +6 int, and then engineering again saves the day with the double recoms, right? So that's pretty much the shaman. I'll actually put the crescent staff in there. Why not, right? In case I link this to somebody. So that's pretty much shaman in a nutshell. And again, the thought process is you don't have plus healing to benefit, or you don't have chain heal to benefit from a lot of plus healing, and you're probably going to be running something that's looking like this, right? These are kind of mandatory. Then you're probably going to be putting some points in here. I made it in the video. I take points in here over here because you're just casting this more, but this is not bad either, right? And you're already at 20, and then you can kind of pick what you want, right? You can go this to round it out, or if you are casting a lot of totems, like you feel like you're having to replace a lot, this could be really good. You could finish out the rest of this and put a couple points in here. That could work. I think if you're going to finish out this, it's probably better to just put points in here than to get like 2% max mana, right? I feel like you kind of stay away from this in general, but if you are going to take it, it's probably something you're putting 5 points in, right? But yeah, I think these are probably generally more useful, to be honest. So yeah, it's probably going to be like what the spec is, and I think it kind of works really well with this. You know, this does augment your int kind of, but it's a very small amount of additional help, so just something to keep in mind there. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for Shaman. And then Paladin, it's basically going to be the same exact thing as Shaman. You're mostly looking for int gear here, and you know, you have like the difference between these classes is kind of like the armor type, right? The armor class. But the thing is like a lot of the healing gear at low levels, at least the stuff that's already in the game that we know of, basically trends towards cloth at low level. And it's kind of true even, I feel like, for the majority of the game, where like a lot of the good healing stuff generally is cloth, and you get less of it in leather, less of it in mail, and then even less of it in plate, right? So maybe that's something they'll kind of address a bit more. But it does kind of make sense, because like when you think about it, all classes can use the cloth, only one class can use the plate, only one class can use, I guess, paladins and shamans can use the mail, right? And then so it kind of makes sense, I feel like, how they did it. But yeah, there's just a scarcity of like appropriate armor class gear for something like a paladin at low level. So again, shadow goggles for the int. You could actually get the plus healing here if you want to, but again, flashlight just doesn't really scale super well. So yeah, it's up to you there. 6 intellect, again, used to seeing this mantle. 6 intellect, again, just a green. Same thing that the shaman's wearing, same thing that shaman's wearing here. So this is from the Paladin level 20 quest, and paladins don't use staves, so that's what makes this a bit different. And I think it's basically like equivalent to using like a really good one hand and a shield. You get more armor class in the shield, but you might lose a little bit of int, because you don't get the +3 here, right? And this you get the +3, and you get the 7 stamina, which is also really nice. And then you get some spirit as well, which will help when you're like drinking, stuff like that, when you're actually outside the 5-second rule. So you could do sword and board here if you want to be a bit more tanky, but this is just a super easy option, and you get it from a quest, right? So that's why I put it here. This is the same story you've seen everything. The belt, kind of like the same story. It's just good, right? And this we went for a green named, and then you know, just random green.
the same Black Widow band, as you see, we like that a lot. And then the Lavish Jewel. You can pretty much just put anything here with int and whatever other stat, right? Agility not super useful. And then the Recon Bobs, along with the goggles. So engineering, obviously very useful, especially for Pre-Bis. This is the spec you're going to be doing on Paladin. And, yeah, I mean, it leans into stacking int, but because of this, and then this is based off crit, which int gives you. But again, you're not really stacking significant amounts of crit, so this is more just a case of the fact that int also happens to be the best thing, since spirit is just not really good for the Paladin, right? So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comments. This is a bit quicker than the other one, but I genuinely feel like it's easy to make this sort of video for these classes, right? Because there's not a ton of options pre-BFD. So thank you guys so much. If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe. If not, totally cool. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow for SOD. I may try and get a gold video out, but I may wait like a day or two and do that a bit more proper. So yeah, thank you guys again for watching, and talk to you later.